to a very interesting issue about what should be the attitude of a regulator. What are the things which a regulator must do to enhance the ethical content of the profession? Fortunately, we are revising our ethics guidelines, and we have put up the draft guidelines on our website, and we should be hopefully passing the revised set of contemporary guidelines very shortly. And one of the guidelines intends to deal with something which Chief Justice Shah and Justice Bhatt would have seen in their courts over and over and over again, that a counsel accepts a brief and does not turn up to appear in the matter. And we now, by a rule, are proscribing that conduct. But that is an important decision, which I think is necessary, not only for the purpose of enabling the growth of a junior bar, but is also important to fasten commitment on people who take responsibilities. Now, this change is necessary because unless and until we're seen as a vehicle of some relevance, what could happen is the profession as well as the regulator may well become puppets of a governmental body, and we could minimize the independence of the legal profession completely if we are not on guard. And I think the crying need of the hour is that there has to be a heightened degree of vigilance. I remember Professor Menon, who in the course of one of the meetings, while discussing our document of this national legal vision, repeatedly mentioned that unless and until there was a concern for the people who can't articulate their own concerns, it is quite meaningless to talk about the relevancy of the legal profession in an international context. Ultimately, when we have these exchanges, what we see is what is the manner in which access to justice has been better delivered in Ireland. How is it that the legal aid in Ireland was first dismantled and then restructured to see that there were regular social audits of legal aid? Ireland is a country where legal aid has been a fascinating success. In Australia, access to justice program is their priority, both in university education and also in continuing legal education. A person who is actually a partner in a law firm is expected to devote a certain number of hours, if not cumulatively to the account of a partner, for pro bono work, and which again has to be certified and can be looked at by the regulator to see that it was done fairly, efficiently, and independently. Now, unless and until we evolve certain areas of commitment, a suggestion came from Professor Menon that before a person is designated as a senior advocate, there must be a mandatory check on the number of legal aid cases he has undertaken in his career as a lawyer. Has he actually shown a willingness to do something which was not in the mainstream? Justice Zach Yacoub told us to use this as a benchmark to see whether a person has got that inner conviction to be able to withstand pressure, to be able to overcome publicity, to be able to withstand government, to be able to withstand any kind of obstruction in the discharge of his professional duties. In today's world, where I'm afraid, while we are a global village, and while we like using this expression, network, relationships, interconnectedness, now they're very useful in a transactional, analytic psychotherapy, but they are not useful if it comes to compromising, shall we say, sectoral rights. If there is too much of interconnectedness, the casualty could be human rights. The casualty could be the poor. And the casualty could be the underprivileged. Even today, as I speak to you, in 21 districts in Orissa, which are inhabited by tribals, they search vainly for their evening meal without the rations having been supplied under the PTS system. Where are their rights? And who cares for them? And who is going to account for them? Which program is going to account for them? Is it possible that if the legal profession is not vigilant, then it might dilute, overtaken by the craze of wealth, overtaken by the craze of, shall we say, superior affluence? It may dilute its own guard, and it may dilute not only itself, but I'm afraid, I venture to say, sir, it may dilute, possibly, political sovereignty of a majority of unknown and unrecognized people. That is a concern which must engage us. And that is our concern of this moment. And none of us can really afford to be swept off our feet, because we have instances where the national autonomy of the legal profession has been fractured on account of lack of insight, on account of lack of anticipation, on account of lack of political understanding of institutions. In a pluralist society where an APL or a BPL actually doesn't have very much to distinguish between the two in terms of even real indicia, it will be a sad day if the profession were not able to know that there is a direction which it has to take. If it has to actually be of relevance, it has to be relevant to the society in which it is founded. And it cannot use techniques and offers of marginalization and increasing marginalization, because that would be a complete negation of the profession itself. And I sincerely believe that in today's discussions, the kind of moral essence which was generated by Adrian Evans and Geraldine Clark, Professor Menon and the others, is something which is too precious to be recounted in small phrases or to be captured in words. The fact remains that they have understood that if law is meant to be a useful process, it is a process ultimately, but that process must not be translucent. It must be a process which is clear, which is engaging, which is direct, which is accountable, and more than anything else, is able to withstand any kind of interrogation. It is that process which is to be restored and preserved in a democracy. And this extraordinary day, I think, has been a great lesson for the regulator. The Indian regulator accepts this lesson with humility and says that its own charter for the future is very much founded on these core principles of constitutionalism. It is not an empty incantation, but it is going to be both an article of faith, but it is also going to be the way ahead for the regulator. I congratulate the International Bar Association, Elizabeth Seshadri, Professor Adrian Evans, who is a distinguished scholar and who has put in many, many man-hours behind all that which he spoke today. Geraldine Clark, who is, of course, a symbol of the Irish spirit as well, and very happy to have the views and her totally outspoken views on why the profession needs to redeem its image for the sake of winning public confidence. And the only way it can redeem that image is by willing to engage with malpractices, willing to look into complaints, willing to handle them in a fair, dispassionate and swift manner. It's been a learning curve the whole day, and I think I would not like that curve to diminish or to stop, but it's been an absolutely enthralling experience. Thank you.